Badass Attitudes, licensed here. A podcast for successful badassery with Kelly Orchard. Certifying badasses, one podcast at a time.
Alrighty then. So yeah, Kelly Orchard, the Badass Certifier. Thank you, Mr. Ocean, for your awesome introduction. I am feeling a little more badass this week than I was last week. A couple of things happened. If you're friends with me on social media, you already know. But if you're a listener who doesn't know me on social media, you didn't see the announcement. So it's on the picture of the main podcast. So yes, my grandson arrived on Friday evening. I'm super excited. I want to just like celebrate, and it doesn't seem like it's customary anymore to send out cigars. But if I could, I would. But I can't, so I won't. But I'm super. There's no word for it. This is my 5th grandchild, and most people, in fact, no, not most, all people, when they meet me, they hear me, they listen to me, they look at me, they see me, and they feel my energy. They're like, I cannot believe that you are a grandmother. I'm like, yeah, I am. I was blessed with a youthful energy and a youthful mindset and attitude. And fortunately, it kind of translates into my appearance as well. I often get probably 10 to 15 years younger than I actually am. So when people hear that I have grandkids, they're surprised. And then now that when they hear that I have 5, they'll be like on the floor. But I'm super excited. I have so much fun. They said, I remember when my daughter was pregnant with my first one, Reagan's now 11. So I have been a grandmother for 11 years. When I was working, and this is when I was working as an intern before I became a licensed psychotherapist, I was working at a hospice agency, and a lot of the ladies that worked there were, these older nurses, and they had already had grandchildren and stuff like that, and they were sharing with me, you're going to love your grandkids more than you love your kids. And I thought, no, that is impossible. I absolutely adore my children. I love them, and I, proud to say I raised them as a single mom. And so I just could not imagine loving any other creature more than I loved my own kids that I gave birth to. But you know what? It is entirely true. Not that I love my grandkids more than I loved my kids, but it definitely amplifies the love. It amplifies it. And so as you know, I have been kind of teasing the idea that I'm going to go back to Texas to visit my daughter and son-in-law and my 3 grandchildren that I have there. If you've been listening to the podcast, I kind of shared I did share my travel story of going to Texas back in December. I will share it again because, thankfully, because the kind of work that I do, I get to work remotely. So I am going to transition to some remote work coming up very soon. And then I will be doing my work in Texas for about a month. I'll be out there. And I'm really excited to be making that journey because, once again, I am going to drive. And so that'll take me a couple days, and then I've made arrangements to stay in a trailer at their RV park where my daughter and son-in-law live. So it'll be like a month-long camping trip, but I'll still be able to earn a living. It's like the best of everything, So early mornings and evenings with baby time, and still able to earn a living. It's kind of a badass thing. But here's the thing: getting to badass is that, we don't always have that badass attitude, and a lot of people can think that the badass attitude means that, you're just kind of badass all the time. But part of it also knows that you need to take a break and accept some pause. And that's part of the steadfastly stay the course. Even though things might be falling apart around you, you know what your goals and dreams are. You know where you want to see yourself. It also means that you've got to remain flexible. So you're staying the course, but you've got to be nimble and flexible because, man, I got to tell you, life is going to throw you obstacles and detours. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're just nodding your head going, yeah, you're right. And so I don't just speak from, I don't just read articles and then share with you what's going on or about the article. Usually it's the article or whatever I'm sharing with you has affected me. And so I thank you so much for continuing to come back and stay on the bus to Badassville as we continue on this journey together. So I have a new grandson. His name is Emmett. Emmett Jackson Jacoby. Isn't that a badass name? I love that my kids name their kids really badass names. I got Reagan, Heidi, Finley, Olivia, and Emmett now. And those are all badass names, and they're all badass kids. I got to play and have my grandberry girls. I call them all grandberries, not grandchildren or grandbabies, but they are grandberries. And I got to play with my two older ones this weekend because they live here close to me. And so when we got the news that baby Emmett had arrived in Texas, I had my own little celebration party with my granddaughters already in store for me, and so that was really exciting. So that's part of the badass plan, is to just give yourself permission to enjoy the good times, the blessings, even when things can be going all wrong. I do take care of my parents, and we've had some issues that have occurred. That is kind of par for the course, right? Which has caused me to have to make some detours on the plan that I was on, kind of a setback, it felt like. And as they age, I know that it will continue. So I'm having to, have that awareness of my own emotions. This is all part of the Badass program. I've noticed that whenever I talk about being aware of how you're feeling about things and aware of your emotions, that gets a lot of downloads. So today we're talking about the whole program, but awareness and staying the course is really critical right now. Aware of how you're feeling about things. And I know I don't talk about current events. Well, I talk about my current events, but I don't talk about world current events on this podcast. It's not what it's about. But I do have conversations with people, and I hear from them how they are feeling. And I still, just like I do in my therapy practice, I maintain a neutral position, a neutral stance, meaning that I'm not sharing my politics. I'm not trying to convince somebody about my politics or what I feel. I call myself pretty apolitical. I don't feel that I have enough time to fully research and do my due diligence on a topic or an item that somebody may want to debate me. I leave that to lawyers and debaters and whatever, the pundits. I'm not a political science major. I am a social science major. That is my bachelor's degree, with an emphasis in organizational leadership. And then I have my master's in psychology. There's no politics involved there, so I'm not going to talk politics. I don't feel that I'm qualified. Now, does that mean that I don't have opinions? Does that mean I don't have feelings and emotions and thoughts about things that are happening? Absolutely, that is not true. I do. But when I'm talking to my clients, when they come to me, so whether you are a coaching client or you are a therapy client, I just listen. And then I just validate how you're feeling about it. And that's what's really important, how you're feeling about it. And then, do you feel helpless to do anything about it? And a lot of people do. And this is how I address that as well. Well, then if you feel helpless, then maybe it's time for you to step up and learn more about your political affiliation or your political tendencies. And maybe it's time for you to, run for office. Or maybe it's time for you just to volunteer for a campaign for somebody that you support who is running for office. Or maybe it's time for you to focus on the other side. I know that the lines have been drawn here. But there is another side. And in a debate, in debate class, whether you're in high school or college or you're becoming a lawyer, they do require you to pick a side that's not one that you maybe believe in. And so that way you can come up with an argument, for it. The reason for that is to teach critical thinking. And so critical thinking is not a bad thing. So if you are so blocked off on your one version of what's happening out there in the world, politically, medically, whatever it is, I would encourage you to start looking into the other aspects of it, what other people are saying, rather than dismissing it entirely. The reason for that is that it'll build your confidence, number one. You'll have a better understanding of how somebody who's coming at you is feeling. Remember, it's not right or wrong. It's how someone is feeling. So if they're feeling depressed or anxious or helpless or hopeless, those are their feelings that they're having. So it's not my job to tell them that their feelings are wrong. It's my job as a therapist and as a coach to understand how they're feeling and then help them come up with ways to cope with those feelings. So I wanted to just share that awareness of your own emotions and how you are reacting to others is really the difference between whether or not you're badass or not. Honestly, you need to check your emotions. And if somebody is coming at you, I look at it this way: people who are confrontational, people who are kind of harsh, they're angry about something and they may not be getting their voice heard. So it's just a matter of it. And I'm not one that's going to engage in that political debate. I don't think that on any kind of social media, I'm going to make any kind of significant difference. So everything I ever post is all good news. So we're back to my grandbabies or grandberries and back to the Successful Badassery podcast. And I am back into my office taking care of things that have been neglected for the last couple of weeks because I've been working from home. And there's just been some emotional stuff happening. And I've had to also check my badass attitude and have an attitude adjustment. And that is exactly what badass is about. It's having that positive attitude that will help propel you to the next step. But if you don't have a badass attitude, and that means healthy, positive, looking forward, being in a good mood, thinking clearly. If you're not there, that's awareness. Okay, that is still part of the badass program. And sometimes just the awareness is knowing when you need to have an attitude check. I needed to take some time to rest and recover and not overbook myself. Meanwhile, I really was working on getting all my License to Be Badass merchandise delivered to all of my badass friends who purchased and got on the bus to Badassville as some of the first to get some badass swag. I was making sure that was getting done. I think I did a podcast last week. I'm trying to get back in that swing of Mustang Monday, but I also had some mechanical issues. It's been a crazy March for me, and it all culminated over the weekend with my grandson came a few days early, and we didn't know that it was a boy. My daughter had decided that this baby, she wasn't going to know what the baby was before it was born. So we didn't know until she sends the picture with the name. And that's when I knew it was a baby boy. So welcome to Emmett Jacoby into the badass family. Meanwhile, I do have some other things for you today. And I wanted to just share the picture of my grandson on the podcast. But remember the badass acronym, okay? So when we're hopping on the bus to Badassville, what is the hardest part of the License to Be Badass program? Decide. It really is. That is the hardest part, is just making a decision that where you are today is not where you want to be tomorrow or 6 months from now or a year from now. And I help you really get to the idea, to the focus on what you want your life to look out like. And it doesn't mean you have to quit your job or quit your relationship or, make major changes. It's the small incremental steps that are what's going to see you through. And one of the things that I focus on every year for myself, and I have for, 6 or 7 years now, is a word for the year that I will focus on. And I found it through a Bible study a few years ago, and I've just been using it with my clients ever since. And we focus on one word, and it really helps to ground you, to keep everything into perspective. When you mention that word each day, when you're looking in the mirror and you're getting ready to go wherever you're going to go or do whatever you're going to do, while you're brushing your teeth, washing your face, whatever your morning routine is, ask yourself the question regarding the word. So, like, for example, my words over the years have been humility. And that didn't mean that I needed to be humiliated or that I was looking to be humiliated or humiliate other people. But it was a lesson in being humble. And I was like, how can I humbly serve today? Or how can I serve in humility today? It really helped to remove a lot of the ego-based actions that I would take. A lot of times in business, in any kind of business, there's always the what's in it for me. Wow. So I had to flip that from the what's in it for me to the what's in it for them as I help them. And that was the first year and some of the things that I learned. Now, did I have some other experiences that I had to practice even more humility with? Absolutely. And then other years I've had love as my focus, but it was more about loving myself and loving my clients. It wasn't about romantic love. It was love of family. It was that positive attitude. That was the year. That was the year that I developed the Badass program. It was all based on love. And then allow. was another word after that. Was allow whatever. Allow was challenging. I had to just allow things to happen, or what am I going to allow today? That was kind of how the question went. Then I've gone through trust. That was the COVID year. Yeah, trust. Right. We had the rug pulled out from under us, didn't we? Then last year was grace. And what a year that was to just give people grace and ask for grace when I needed it. This year, my word is receive. And guess what happened first of the year? I've received some love and some grace and humility, but I also received a new grandkid. And that was beautiful. Yeah. So I love the word of the year for you, for anybody, really. It's a really great way to focus on where you're trying to go. This is receive. Well, this is my year to, now receive the blessings of all my hard work, maybe receive love from others. So many different things of receive that and I've got clients, their words are, priorities or surrender, someone else is worthy. These are awesome words. I don't give them their words. Usually it comes out through conversation or something a common theme will come up in our coaching or therapy sessions. And I just wanted to encourage you to focus on that again. It's like, this is March. It's now spring. Happy spring. And we're already a quarter of the way through 2022. How are you on what you thought you wanted for your New Year's resolution? Given the fact that the world it's not normal. And so sometimes we have to, have that nimbleness and that flexibility to make a shift, but not necessarily give up on our dreams and goals. Like for me, one of the things that I had to do over the last couple of weeks is I had to put the projects that I was working in kind of a to-go box and set it up on the shelf for a minute. Not I was putting them away or on the back burner. No, I just had to pause them for a minute. And now I can pull them back off. And so one of the things that I've worked on, and my editor has been working on it, and it has taken much longer than anticipated based on all of these delays, is my 6th book. And I'm not sure what I'm going to call it. I'm going to make, a survey. I'm going to ask some questions in Facebook or social media on what I should call the book, because it is about License to be Badass. And it is about the acronym, the B, the A, the D, the A, the S, and how to get there and what it all means. So I'm gonna have to title my book and come up with a book cover. But the editing is all done, and now it's formatting and getting it ready to publish. And I am super excited about that. That's now a new priority. I get to pull that one off the shelf. The other one that pulled off the shelf is doing more outreach to my radio friends to ask them to air Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. I share with it a little bit here on the podcast, but Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, that's my 60-second audio feature, is broadcasting on about 25 stations around the country. And I'd like to see that increase. And so that was one of the projects that I had to put on pause for a minute, was my outreach to, I got tons of friends in radio, so I could find them. I just got to send them emails and say, share this with your programmer or your sales department, please. And so I had to put that on pause because it meant some creative stuff from me, including writing and doing a voiceover. What has gone on in your life that is causing you to need to kind of step back a little bit and you feel like maybe you've been derailed? Well, it could be anything on top of what's already been going on in the world. It's okay to be flexible. It's okay if you kind of have to step aside and rest and recover for a little bit, as long as you're not feeling defeated and giving up, okay? Don't give up. Stay the course. Be steadfast. And how do you do that? How do you stay the course while you need to surrender or your life has been derailed again? Well, we do that through gratitude, and we do it through practicing patience, and we do that through different tools. And I like to use music. So I found this article for you on how to use music to calm your anxiety. I use music in all sorts of things that I do. And so this is an article from Mind Body Green, and it's 3 ways to use music to calm anxiety from a neurologist. I talk about brain science all the time too. So we predicted that the science of sound, or psychoacoustics, will take the space of well-being by storm in the 2022 wellness trends. But sound healing has actually been around for centuries. Ayurvedic ground and sound, says neurologist on the episode of Mind Body Green podcast. Specifically, certain melodies can bolster your mental health and ease anxiety. And on the other hand, specific frequencies have the potential to sour your mood. Music absolutely can change the way that your brain is firing. Okay, so here's a couple of things. Dedicate time for music therapy. This is why what I teach in the Badass soundtrack, or the Badass certification class, is how to create your badass soundtrack. But I can't teach you every single day that I can only tell you what to do. But I encourage at least spend 10 or 15 minutes a day sampling music that's going to stir up happy memories. According to this, it's important to set dedicated time to music therapy. You can't shove your headphones shove them on during a busy workday and expect that the music or the sounds are going to have the same healing effects. Research shows that allotting time and immersing yourself in the frequencies is key. This is one study that looks at patients with a traumatic brain injury. So the neurologic music therapy has a variety of chanting mantras, and after just 30 to 40 or 30 minutes for those sessions, the brain can start shifting. You could opt for classical music or ancient mantras. Those are always very helpful. Stick to uplifting songs. I can attest to this. So I've recently started a dance party here at Michelle's place. It's not a dance class and it's not an exercise. It's a dance party. So we talk about music and how it impacts us. I'm not running these participants through a hefty dance schedule. In fact, last week I taught them how to strut, like an attitude kind of thing. They learned how to strut, and then they learned the terms of a couple of dance moves. But meanwhile, we're listening to familiar music and we're moving our bodies and we're creating memories and we're laughing and we're just enjoying ourselves. So even if you don't dedicate time to classical music therapy practice, songs that you listen to throughout the day can secretly affect your mental health. Music carries emotional power. So just like, the TV and film industry, when people spend a lot of time selecting the songs in each scene to elicit a certain emotional response, the music you listen to all day tends to have that same impact. So if you listen to darker or frenetic music, you can imagine what that's going to do to your headspace. So the takeaway is this: music can be soothing and uplifting, but it's not all about entertainment. It sparks an emotional response. Now, this is from a neurologist, and I always talk about the same from, heart math as well. And that's how I personally discovered the Badass soundtrack. I'm not teaching anything that's brand new. Obviously, music therapy has been around for centuries, and they do some of these sound healings here at Michelle's place. I experienced some of it out on some of my retreats in Sedona, and I will again. But when you are in a sad mood, or life has been derailed and you need a pick-me-up, a good 3-minute song that you can enjoy, and it stirs up those happy memories and it causes you to remember an event that caused you to feel good and you appreciate, and that it emanates love, it's going to do wonders for your mindset and wonders for your body as well, because it also changes the neurotransmitters in your body, and the brain chemistry reduces the cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So it's actually reducing the impact on stress. So that's why I pitch music so much. It is so, so, so important. So, this month of March, I'm doing a leadership challenge. It's not a challenge, just kind of a leadership summit. So please go on over to Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. It's on the same platform that you get this podcast on, and listen to the Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. They're just 60 seconds, and this month I'm focusing on leadership, and all the podcasts have been about leadership too. What kind of a leader do you want to be in these new times? There's still really challenged on getting qualified people to stay working for you. First thing this morning, I've had a couple of incidents where, you get somebody to work for you and then you discover that, well, they can't start until this, then, or the other, or maybe you can only get them once a week when you really need them 3 times a week. And then I find that, I hear my friends all the time who own businesses, they hire somebody who's completely qualified, who's going to work out really well, but then somebody comes along and offers them more money and they cannot compete with that. If you're an employee, this is a good place for you to be. You can pretty much, well, for the most part, write your own ticket. Go get a job that you would really love and enjoy. Try something new. Employers are willing to hire people with no experience if they need to. If you meet some qualifications, don't be afraid to spread your wings and fly a little bit. And for those employers looking for good people, I wish I had the answer for you. I do. I too would like to hire some good people myself. And it's not that the good people aren't out there. Well, maybe they aren't. I don't know. Are you a good person? And I'm not talking to the employers now. I'm talking to the listener. Are you a good people? How do you feel about your work? How do you feel about your employer? How do you feel about the leadership in your business? That's what's critical right now is leadership. How are leaders adapting and being flexible and nimble while they stay the course? And if you say you don't know how to find that answer, well, you're wrong. You know why? Because you're right here. You're here. And this is where we're going to find the solutions. And how do we find the solutions? Well, they come from you. And if you're lost, then we just need to get you thinking differently. And when you can reduce the stress and the anxiety that's holding you back, then you're going to be able to develop clear and steady path to where your company needs to be or how you need to lead your family or your team. If you want more information on that and you'd like to have a discussion on how I can help you, navigate these waters and create a badass business and a badass team, I'm your girl. Meanwhile, here's Mr. Ocean.
When the bus arrives at Badassville, you discover it's not a place, it's a state of being. Snag your Badass Habits ebook. Get started on your badass journey. Go to licensedtobebadass.com. Hop on the bus to Badassville.